Hi Faraz, how are you? Let's do a sound check. Mansi, am I audible?
Yeah, audible. What
Yeah,
about
you're
mine?
yeah. Audible, visible, light. Okay.
Hey guys,
Morning.
good
Hi.
morning.
Good morning, Samuel.
I think it's 11. We'll start on time.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah, so I think there are people who've already joined and the rest, they can join later. Uh Great. So I'll do the introductions again, and this time I'll introduce Mansi first. So just 1 minute. I'll just come in a minute. Can you guys do the introductions? Sorry, I'll just have something. I'll just come back in a minute.
Sure, sure.
So I'll introduce
So
Mansi.
yeah, I'll do it myself.
You
Thanks,
want to do
thanks.
it? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, no problem. So good morning, everyone. My name is Dr. Mansi Jain. I am Prateek's wife, and I'm also a psychiatrist and a trained child psychiatrist. Prateek, you can introduce yourself, please.
Hi. I am Pratik. You guys know me now. It's been 20 years. I'm a psychiatrist. I practice at Borivali. Till the time Somil joins back, there are some opening remarks that we wanted to make. Mansi, would you want to start with that about the session today?
Yeah, yeah. So the whole idea behind this session or why we wanted to do this is because we frequently come across like my colleagues, my undergraduate, postgraduate friends who are now parents, and frequently when I meet some of you guys also along with Pratik, we are usually bombarded with questions with regards to parenting. So we are not parenting experts. We ourselves don't have children. We don't have a child center. So there is nothing personal, no personal gain in this, but we realize that there is a lot of material about parenting out there and not all of it is authentic. So what we decided to do was compile few evidence based techniques or tips to help you manage certain behaviors. Most of these behaviors or problems that we are going to discuss today can be handled at a parental level and do not need intervention from a mental health professional or any child professional most of the times, unless it becomes very severe. So the whole point of this was just to kind of have like an informative video out there which you guys can access anytime you require without any kind of personal stakes in this.
Right. Today's session is about handling challenging behaviors of children. There are five caveats which I would want to start with. First, it's all about developing routines. Second, it's about praising desired behaviors. Third, it's about removing dangerous temptations. Fourth is about redirecting problem behavior. Fifth, it's about keeping it non-judgmental and consistent. Also, the one thing we say in psychiatry is the child who needs the most love will ask for it in the most unloving way. Right? With that, Somil, you can take over the session.
Yeah, so just while Somil comes back, so what Pratik mentioned was very accurate, praising the desired behavior. So, for some of you guys who might have seen the first video, part one of the session, where we talked about parenting in general and did not discuss a lot of problem behaviors in detail. So, today's session is more about problem behaviors, but that is the general crux of parenting, which we talk about as, reinforcement. So, reinforcement is nothing but how to increase a particular behavior. So, most parents come with this question that if we say a bad word in front of a child, he'll immediately pick it up, but no matter how much we try to teach the child a particular shlok or a particular religious text, the child always resists. So the child resists good things but picks up bad things very easily. So that's not it's not a completely accurate description, because the child doesn't understand what is good and what is bad at a very young age, but it is more about attention, more about parents reaction. So let's say when a child might say something, some religious text or some normal sentence, the reaction that he or she gets from his parents might not be so stark. Whereas in comparison, let's say if the child says a bad word, right, everybody in the house might immediately notice it, or give some remark or some expression, and the child perceives that as attention. So praise is one form of attention or one form of reinforcement or a technique to increase a particular good behavior. How do you reduce particular behaviors which you don't want? Most of the times ignoring them works. The mistake or the problem that most of us do as parents is we feel that if we kind of don't intervene at that point of time, if we don't teach our children or don't say something, the child will repeat that bad behavior. But it's the other way around. If you intervene or if you give a lot of attention to that behavior, the child thinks that, oh, it's okay for me to do this behavior, or doing this behavior gets me mom and dad's attention. So the bad behavior usually increases. It becomes like, it's easy to say as parents. I find, like, I see that how practically difficult it is to sometimes ignore the bad behavior, but that is what we are here for. Today we are going to discuss a bit more in detail.
Yeah.
Most of the times
Just to add to that, it's necessary to not consider the behavior by itself. Consider patterns in all settings, which can be at home, which can be at daycare, which can be in the playground, which can be in the school. Yeah, Mansi, go ahead.
Yeah. So what I was saying is that parenting, generally three P's, the principles of parenting. The number one is patience. So most of us, become very anxious. Most of us have like one or max to max two children, and then like they're precious children, and we kind of devote a lot of our time and energy into our children. And so when something is not working right, let's say the child has having temper tantrums, the child is having school refusal or anxiety with regards to certain behavior, we tend to become more anxious than the child. We feel that we need to fix this right away, and sometimes we don't have the patience to kind of do the thing that is required for the child to learn a new behavior and unlearn a old behavior or a wrong behavior. So patience is the first thing which I would say that most of us need to keep as parents. Second thing is what Pratik mentioned, positive reinforcement, which is praise, which is very much underutilized, especially as like our parents, like Indian parents, the template was never given to us, how to praise children. It is assumed, like, we are supposed to assume that parents are proud of us, right? If we do something well. And that is something that made us overachievers, because you're always striving to kind of prove it to our parents. But today's generation of kids, they desire a lot more expressive praise, a lot more expressive affection. So do not shy away from that, praising your children. And the third P, I would say, is being a present parent. So we discussed a few of this last time also, how being doctor parents, we are put under additional pressure and a lot of guilt, especially working women or female doctors, that we are not spending enough time with our children. We are outsourcing the caregiving to either grandparents or babysitting or daycare, and that eats us from inside, right? And we feel that no, we have to be perfect parents. So I always tell mothers, or I always tell my colleagues also, that okay, we need not be perfect parents. We are humans. We are never going to be perfect. Let us try and be present. The time that we are giving our children, let that be undivided attention. Let that be, more affectionate and showing up. So when you've promised a child that you'll do something, right? Keeping that promise as much as possible, right? Or kind of, being aware of what is happening in their life. Many a times we see parents who might not be working, but still are very much uninvolved in the child's life. Providing the basic necessities is just a basic bare minimum requirement. Going above and beyond that and being present in the child's life is something that we require. So just to kind of summarize, we need to have patience, we need to have positive reinforcement, that is praise, and we need to be present parents instead of perfect parents. If we do this, or if we follow this, most of the problems do kind of settle down on their own.
Sorry guys, I went missing for a bit. Uh, do you want me to do your introductions? I don't know if everyone
Yeah.
knows
No,
your
that's
guys.
okay. No, no, that's
We
okay.
just mentioned it in brief, no
Uh,
problem.
Yeah, yeah, we
oh,
mentioned.
अच्छा, ठीक है, चलो. I'll put the introduction on our group itself. So should we start with the questions then that we
Yeah.
prepared a few of them?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So I think this is something that everybody goes through, and everybody who has kids between, like, I think 2 to 5, 7, 10. I don't know till when the temper tantrums go on. But so I noticed. So when my kid was less than 2, she was like an angel, and we used to brag to everybody that she has no temper tantrums. And I don't know, on the second birthday, the switch sort of flipped. Now, of course, so with you guys having shared the template of a parent learning and all of that, and uh, I mean, we also understand from your introduction as well, like, patience is the key. But the thing is, just like we need to understand kids, I think they also understand us very well, and they know how to push the buttons. So to
Yeah.
our insecurities, to the things that we don't like. So how do we handle temper tantrums? How can we work as a team? of parents, what can be done, can be done. So all of that, yeah, temper tantrums is the biggest thing that everybody wants to know. Solutions, have solutions for.
Okay. So I'll start and then Pratik can probably chip
Yes.
in. So temper tantrums happen, and you very rightly pointed out it starts at the age of 2 usually because a child learns to say no. Till the age of 2, the child does not differentiate itself from its parents. It does not have something we call as object permanence. So it doesn't realize that things which the child sees are existing outside the child. So once that concept develops, once the child realizes it has autonomy, it can say no. That's when temper tantrums start. So, it starts expressing desire. Now the problem is that they are most of the times very irrational, the temper tantrums, right? So meko apple khana tha, you cut the apple and gave me, now I don't want to eat it. Or why did you peel the banana and give me? I wanted the whole banana. So it doesn't make sense. So what happens is that their frontal lobe is not yet completely developed. They don't have emotional regulation, and that is why temper tantrums happen. So the most important thing that parents need to do in this situation is understand that it is part of normal development to a certain extent, unless the child harms himself or herself in the tantrum, like head banging, and ignore the temper tantrums. Most common mistake that parents do here is they start explaining to the child when the temper tantrum is going on. When the child is crying, we start, either bargaining with the kid because we are embarrassed, it's happening in a public space, or we start explaining to the child that this is not good behavior, don't do this, or, we will give you this later. So that increases the tantrum. Ignoring is the most commonest and the easiest way to deal with a temper tantrum, but we feel embarrassed and we don't do it. But like rightly said, that all kids go through it. So if we just empathize with other parents and understand that if the child is throwing a tantrum, it's not the parents' fault, it's just a development detail of the child, then we can also kind of feel a little better about handling them. Second thing that we need to do is understand circumstances under which temper tantrums occur, right? So many a times when the child is tired, so if you take the child for a very long excursion or a long activity, the child is bound to get tired. If the child is hungry, if the child is sleepy, or if the child does not like that activity, so taking child along with you when you're going shopping, the child is going to become cranky. So in such situations, it's best to avoid or take a child who's, like be fully prepared when you're taking the child along with you. So have some activities that the child can engage in. Make sure that the child is comfortable, hydrated, fed, slept, and rested. If that is not possible, then best to avoid certain activities with the child. So let's say, shopping or going for a long drive where you know that the child might get a little bored and throw a tantrum. The third thing that we need to do is that, let's say, when the tantrum is occurring, right, and if you feel that the child is going to harm himself or herself, so let's say the child does head banging or throws something, at that time, if the child is very small, it's okay to physically lift the child and remove them from that situation. So just pick up your child and move away. So let's say it's happening in a grocery store, right, or in the market, just lift the child, let the child continue crying, do not talk to the child, and move away from that situation. Let the child calm down. After the child has calmed down, maybe we can, have a conversation with the child. Third, another thing that we can do is prepare before the tantrum. So let's say when you are taking the child to a market and now you are aware that we are going to pass a particular stationery store or a particular toy store, and the child always demands something from that store. So you can always let the child know that, okay, today we are not going to buy anything from that store beforehand. And when the child does not throw a tantrum or just calmly comes back, hopefully, at that time, praising that behavior, that you were such a good boy or such a good girl that you did not kind of, demand anything. Lastly, what I would say is that, if the child is having tantrums which are increasing or extending beyond a certain age, so let's say around 3 to 4 years of age, they should settle down. But if it extends beyond that, are happening way more frequent, or the child develops like, a breath holding spell. So sometimes they cry so loudly that they turn blue, or they will just stop breathing, sometimes, or it looks like that the child is going to faint. In such cases, then maybe we need to have professional intervention where we are visiting a therapist or a doctor or a pediatrician to see that what is actually happening. Pratik, you want to add something?
Yeah, so it's always like interaction between the environment and the person, and children are always observing us. They are always learning. There were times where while training parents to help their children during temper tantrums, we also say that we use selective ignoring because the temper tantrum behavior is negatively reinforced. It reduces. Second thing, we also tell the parents that before the temper tantrum goes away, it will intensify. As in, the child will give it his or her everything, and won't stop yelling, crying. So necessary to understand that temper tantrum gets worse before getting better.
Yeah,
So
I think the
just
take home
don't keep
message.
trying.
The take home from this will be that don't enter into a logical conversation during
Yeah.
the temper tantrum. That's the commonest thing we end up doing, or we see parents ending up doing. So just let the child tire himself or herself out with the tantrum. Most of the times it's minor. If we give in to the child's demand, right, that usually happens now when there are grandparents or extended family and they just cannot see the child crying. The moment the child cries, even if the mother is trying to discipline or the father is trying to discipline, grandparents will be like, "Arey nahi, de do na, kya problem hai?" Just give the child what the child wants. That's the thing which will reinforce the tantrum. So the next time the child wants something, it will keep throwing that tantrum. So that is something that we need to be more careful of. So not giving into the tantrums. And then second thing would be to kind of, not having a logical conversation, because that time the child is in limbic hijack, like emotions all over, no logic at all. So if you end up explaining at that time, nothing will register. The child will only understand that if I cry, I get attention. So the
So
child
it
is
will
going to do it
escalate.
more and more. Yeah. So just ignoring that, so that the child realizes that if the child throws a tantrum, I am not getting attention. When the child becomes calm, at that time also don't talk about the tantrum, that this was bad behavior. So then the child feels that, oh, this behavior gets me more explanations from mom and dad, which is again attention. So just telling the child that if you cry or if you shout, I will not be able to hear you. Mama cannot understand you when you are crying or when you are shouting. If you want to communicate, why don't you talk to me calmly? So the child next time when starts crying or having a tantrum, just reminding themselves, you remember, right? Mama can't hear you when you shout and cry. Why didn't you start talking calmly? Right? That is something that can give the cue to a child to have a shorter tantrum. And then gradually the intensity of those reduce. Once they start developing, once they become more mature, eventually the temper tantrums fade out and they kind of, stop happening.
For children who are less than 8, it's nice to talk to them about some code of conduct before going to a mall or to an airport, or places where they can throw tantrums, so that they understand that this is a pre-decided thing and that mama papa aren't gonna give attention to something like this, so that you can remind them that this is something we are not gonna do, and keep on walking, or ignore it selectively.
Yeah, and don't feel bad if your child throws tantrum. It's just part of normal development. It does not reflect anything about your parenting, and you don't need to feel embarrassed, especially if it happens in a public place. All of us have been through that.
If the response is not coming, any and every organism will increase the strength of the stimulus. So this is biology.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, with this, is there any role of distracting the child with something, or sort of engaging the child at all during the tantrum, or should you completely ignore every tantrum, or because
Yeah.
sometimes the child may hurt, I mean, we might not know, hurt themselves, hurt others, doing something that they might not wanting to do it, but
True.
so should you completely ignore them? Is there any role of distracting the child during the temper tantrum by any positive or activity, such as, which is like say screen time, giving them some food or something like that? Does any of that work sometimes, or that is absolute no no?
Yeah. So distraction might work before the temper tantrum has started. Once the temper tantrum has started, anything that you do, so giving the child screen, engaging the child, giving the child some bribe that, okay, be quiet, is all positive reinforcement. It is only going to increase the likelihood of the next tantrum. So the next time you go to a mall, the child knows that if I embarrass my mom and dad here, I will immediately get the phone. So I just have to start crying and they'll give me the phone or they will give me candy. So if you feel that the child is becoming irritable, and most parents are very much attuned to their children and they can understand that now the child is tired, the child is sleepy, child is hungry. So if these are the factors, we take care of it. If it is possible to distract with something, best to distract it. But if the tantrum has started, then don't distract, don't try to distract, because that is more like you giving attention to the child, which increases the tantrum. And if there is a fear of, or like, a fear that the child might harm themselves. So a lot of kids do head banging when they are throwing a tantrum. They'll just, go behind and hit their head on the wall or hit their head on the floor. In those cases, just physically holding the child, right? So that the child just exhausts with crying and does not harm themselves. That needs to be done. But again, that would be a very extreme tantrum, I would say.
But having said that, I would also say that, like, when we are about to see the extinction, as in the child stopping temper tantrum, once and for all, there might be time where they might do head banging, or make it more intense. But they've got to understand that we are the bosses, and that we are not gonna give in to the tantrums. Anything that you give to the child to make them stop crying or stop throwing a tantrum, you'll have to do it again. So parents need to have a plan that we are going to do this, this, and this amongst themselves as well. As in, take the route where the shop will not be there, or pre-decide that okay, this will be our mode of action if this happens, so that children are also taken care of properly in these moments.
Yeah, true.
Great. So I think people will have a lot of scenarios, but the basic thing is just ignore and ignore it like 100% of the times whenever it happens.
And praising good behavior. So let's say,
Yeah,
after
praising.
the tantrum, the child is calm, and then you can praise the good
Yeah, later
behavior.
basically positive reinforcement for being calm. Yeah,
Yes.
nice. So now bedwetting. Coming to the next topic of bedwetting. First of all, till when is bedwetting normal in kids? When would you say training for the urination and defecation or potty training should be done for normal kids? And if an older child is bedwetting, what would be the reasons and how should we handle it?
Okay. So bedwetting is something that happens because our sphincters have not developed complete control. That is why. So generally we say that by the age of 6 or 7, right, or even actually earlier than that, we are saying. But the upper limit, maximum limit is 6 years. So once they start going to school, before that they should be out of the diaper for day and night. So generally, daytime sphincter control comes first. So they are dry by day earlier, but they might still void urine at night when they are sleeping, because they go into deep sleep, and then they don't realize that their bladder is full and they don't have that sphincter control, so they'll just pass urine in the bed. So they need to be dry by day before they go to school, and dry by night by the time they start school. If it is happening beyond that also, then we need to kind of probably try and do something to stop it from happening. Another thing we need to understand is that if it is happening continuously, it's happening more than 3 times a month, 4 times a month, so almost once a week, that is when we consider it a problem. Many times it happens that even children who are 8 years old, 9 years old, might once in a while have an episode of bedwetting. So let's say when they have high fever, or they have played a lot on that day, or it's raining very badly, or the temperature is very cold, then or they are just having very deep sleep, they might on and off, like maybe once in 3 4 months, have one episode of bedwetting. That again is not considered problematic. But if it is very frequent, if it is becoming very difficult to manage, it is more than one time in a night, then we say that okay, that is something that needs attention. Now again, what we do is we use the principles of behavior modification. So best is to avoid bedwetting. So there are certain things we tell all parents to do to avoid the episodes of bedwetting. Number one is restrict fluids during the evening. So a lot of times, there is a habit of giving milk before bedtime, or the child plays in the night and comes back and then drinks a very large amount of water. So that should be avoided as much as possible. We are not saying that restrict fluids or don't give fluids, but additional fluids not. So let's say instead of milk, we could give them something else which is protein based if possible, or milk can be given more in the daytime rather than nighttime in the evening, so that they don't have liquid in their diet just before bed. Second thing will be to have a good bedtime routine and making sure that the child voids the bladder before going to bed. So making sure of forming this habit, that go to the washroom before you go to sleep, just like we teach them to change into their night clothes, brush their teeth before going to bed. So that is something that needs to be done. If you are aware that a child voids at a particular time, so let's say the child sleeps at 10 p.m., but usually around 2 a.m. the child will pass urine, around 1:30 wake the child up and send them to the bathroom. Make sure that they're fully awake and then send them to the bathroom. If the child is very small, is not able to wake up completely, you can carry the child to the bathroom and make sure that they pass urine, so that they are aware that after 2.5 hours of my bedtime, I need to kind of develop that the sleep becomes a little lighter during that period, and then naturally the child starts getting up on their own and going to the bathroom. So that is one thing that can be done. If the child is a little older and you feel like okay, I don't want to wake up and take the child to the bathroom, giving the child an alarm clock, making sure that the child wakes up maybe even 2 times a night, so maybe around 2 o'clock and then again at 5 a.m. to pass the urine and going back to bed. That is something that can be done. In most of the cases, 99% of the cases, this is what takes care. Sometimes we need to look for whether the child is having some form of anxiety, or temperamentally the child is very anxious, or having some emotional issues, because of which the bedwetting can occur again and again. Many times what happens is the child had stopped having bedwetting. The child had become completely dry by day and dry by night, but some emotional event occurs. So, somebody in the family passes away, or there's a change of school, change of house, and suddenly the child starts bedwetting again. So this is commonly due to secondary emotional issues, and that is when we kind of, do some intervention. So talking to the child, understanding the emotional state of the child. The last thing that I wanted to talk about in bedwetting is something we called as behavior training. So something we call as star charting. Now, this is a very basic idea or basic principle which can be applied to change any behavior that parents want. So let's say if the child, you want the child to stop bedwetting, you want the child to kind of, keep their shoes on in place after coming back from school, or you want the child to eat their vegetables or complete the dish, whatever you have served them food wise, right? So any behavior which needs to be increased, the idea is that you take a simple calendar, right? You explain this to the procedure to the child before you start doing it. So you make the child sit down and show them a calendar of 1 week and tell them that these are 7 days, Sunday to Monday, right? Every day that you do XYZ, whatever behavior. So every day that you don't pass urine in the bed, or every day when you finish your vegetables, we will go and put a star on that day. If you don't finish your vegetables, or if you end up bedwetting, you will not get a star. At the end of the week, if you collect 7 stars, this is what we are going to do. So we are going to go to the garden, we are going to take you swimming, we will buy you that soft toy that you wanted, or we will get you a new box of colors or paintings or anything. So some small reward which is valuable to the child. It need not always be a thing. It can be a thing which you usually do as a family over the weekend. So like, taking the child out for an ice cream, or doing some special thing, mall may some game zone time or something like that. So the child needs to be aware of the reward. So this is how you explain to the child. Now, when the child starts doing it, so let's say the Sunday comes or the Monday comes, and the child has actually finished the vegetables, or the child has not done bedwetting, you allow the child to put that star or draw a smiley or anything on that day by himself or herself, and you praise the child. Again, the importance of praise is extremely high over here. So you need to praise the child for their behavior. You need to praise the child in front of others. So let's say mom is doing this, and when dad comes home from work, you need to tell the dad also that, you know what, today he did this and he was such a good child, or she was such a good child. So praising the child. The problem is that the day the child does not follow it. So let's say Monday he did, Tuesday he did follow whatever behavior we had decided. Now Wednesday, somehow the child is unable to do it. At that time, the important thing is to not to get into a fight with the child, not to shout at the child. So let's say you tell the child, that today bedwetting happened. So okay, no star. Now the child might throw tantrums, say, cry that no, no, I want a star. I will not do it tomorrow. Don't engage with the child. Tell the child that no, we had decided if this does not happen, then we cannot give you the star. No problem. Or if you want to increase certain behavior, so Wednesday the child will be like, no, I don't want to eat the vegetable, I only want to eat chips. So you just remind the child once, are you sure you don't want to eat your vegetables? If you don't finish your vegetables, you will not get the star today. And the child will think about it. The child might say, ha ha, I don't want the star, right? Maybe you just let the behavior go. We restart again from Thursday. But at the end of the week, now that there are no 7 stars, we do not give the child any reward, and just sit down the child and tell them, okay, that you were able to collect 6 stars but no 7 stars, so we are not going to be able to do this. Start with a shorter duration generally. So let's say agar if you start with 1 week, no, the chances of success increase. So if the child does something successfully, the child will do it again and again. So maybe you try with 1 week, 2 weeks, then 3 weeks, gradually increase the duration of that behavior. Praise when the behavior is done. So for bedwetting also, the day the child does not bedwet, we praise the child. The day the bedwetting happens, it's okay. Just ignore that behavior. Gradually, you will see that the duration of good days increases and the bad days decreases, and you will see that later on you do not need to keep a reward, and this becomes part of natural behavior. Many times parents are worried that, do you mean that we will always have to give the child some reward for getting good behavior done? No, we are just starting with that because that increases the motivation of the child to do the good behavior. We need not continue with that. Later on it will become part of the child's habit, and we will not need a reward to do those good behaviors. So this is in simple star charting that we use commonly for bedwetting, but can be used for any behavior change that we want, even for temper tantrums, actually, for that matter. Pratik, you want to add something?
So, generally for bedwetting, we have also seen the birth of a sibling can cause bedwetting in the child who might have been dry by day, or might have achieved continence. So again, very important to make them feel loved. Very important for us to also understand that they want to please us. they don't want us to be angry. And like Mansi mentioned, it's okay to sometimes normalize the embarrassment and be very genuinely warm towards the kid. It's a learning graph, and you set expectation, and the kid will follow suit.
Yeah, do not shame the child for bedwetting.
Yeah.
Many times, parents will do that. Oh, that we are going to tell your school friends that you still wet your bed. The embarrassment will kind of induce even more anxiety in the child and increase the bedwetting. So don't embarrass the child. Understand that this is, if it's an older child, then we need to see why it is happening. In a younger child, just understand that it will kind of reduce. So many times, parents get frustrated because practically it's a difficult issue. Like, how often are you going to
Yeah.
change the mattress or the bed sheet, right? So just finding some, what you say, practical solutions, like keeping that dry mat underneath your bed sheet, so that only the bed sheet needs to be washed and not the whole mattress that needs to be changed, right? Or making sure that the child is not directly under the air conditioning. That is one common reason why we see that children end up bedwetting, because in Mumbai, like it's genuinely hot most of the times, and we have the AC on, but the children then they eventually end up bedwetting because of that. Their temperature regulation is not the same as adults. So, we might feel comfortable, it might be too cold for the child. So, just sometimes even finding practical solutions. And children, like parents, are attuned to their children, so they will understand. Mothers and fathers both pick up. So, that is something that, can help us address bedwetting better.
So even if all of these measures are not, if they're not working, it's necessary to address it with a mental health professional. There are times where we can use a medication called as imipramine. That's a tricyclic antidepressant. It's been USFDA approved for bedwetting. So
Bedwetting.
yeah, that's the thing. Last I wanted to add.
Again, so imipramine also very rarely we use it and has to be paired with
Yeah,
behavior therapies that we
behavior
discussed,
therapy.
like the star
Yes.
charting, right? Because that's not a permanent solution. It's
Yeah.
only when the child is very old and the parents are like, it happens almost twice a night or something like that, like extreme cases of bedwetting, where we need to use the medication in combination with behavior therapy. But yeah, rightly said, we do have, USFDA approved medications to address bedwetting.
Nice. Yeah, I think so. Parents who face it, I think their main concern would also be how to address it with the child. So probably, speaking to them and these behavioral changes should be something that could help. We'll get to the next topic. I think this is something again that most parents feel very embarrassed about or want to avoid otherwise as well. How to manage aggression or prevent our kids from hitting their peers or hitting other adults or even hitting their own parents. So basically, how do we do that? How do we make them understand that it's not a good thing, and how do we make it so that it does not become a habit? One thing that I notice is that a lot of kids pick these things up when they go to play school, when they are outside with their friends, with kids, where there is no one to regulate them many times. And so, how do parents get around that?
Yeah. So for younger children, no, aggression and hitting again can be part of normal development. That is happening when the child doesn't have social skills, right? So social skills will be like, okay, if I want a toy, I can go and ask for it. That can I please share the toy, right? Or if somebody else is taking my toy and I don't want that child to take my toy, I can say no. But younger children don't understand that. So you will mostly see that, it happens when they are playing with other children, like you rightly said, in playgroup settings. So somebody took my toy, so I just went and hit the child. Or I wanted the toy, so I just snatched it from the child's hand. And then the other child hit me, and then the crying starts, and hitting back and forth can start sometimes, right? With parents, it sometimes happen when there are no proper boundaries or disciplining set. Children who have neurodevelopmental conditions, like sometimes autism or ADHD, are more prone to aggression and hitting. So, but not to say that all children who have hitting will have these problems. It's just that they are more prone to these. So it's good to look out for this, because temperamentally they are sometimes a little difficult to handle. So that is what that can happen. Understand that the principles of behavior matter here again. So we will first need to teach the social skills to the children. So let's say when it's happening in a younger kid, when in social settings, so taking toys, sharing toys, then teaching them how to say please, how to say thank you. Sharing is caring. Most of us do that, most parents do that, right? Second thing is when the child is hitting, right, just lifting the child, taking them away from that situation, not giving attention. So shouting, giving a lecture at that time, teaching them that this is bad behavior in that moment is like attention is going to increase that behavior. Sometimes we also need to do therapies like ABA. That's again in extreme cases. So ABA is nothing but applied behavior analysis. So let's say what is the reason the child is doing this behavior, right? So understanding the child's behavior and giving the child an alternative behavior. That again is a very last stage resort when we feel that the parents are not being able to handle it by themselves, and then approach a professional. Then that is when we kind of intervene at this level. But most of the times, taking the child away from the situation, not engaging in a conversation at that time, right? Teaching the child social skills. We usually teach them that no, this is bad, we should not hit, hitting is bad. But then besides that, we also need to teach the child how to deal with the situation. Hitting is bad, but if somebody takes your toy, what to do? Or if you want somebody's toy, what to do? How to speak, how to kind of express, that is something that needs to be taught. Many times the child grows older and these behavior continue, then it is a problematic behavior. So let's say if it is happening, a lot of aggression. So let's say, when we say that hitting is still acceptable at a certain age to a certain level, but when it becomes aggression where the child is causing harm to other kids or parents like you mentioned, then we need to probably have intervention from someone trained. I think Pratik can add a bit more.
Yeah. Parenting, the most important aspect is how to reduce behavior. So anything which reduces behavior is called punishment. But punishment shouldn't be adding of a painful stimulus. Punishment should be withdrawal of love, withdrawal of attention and affection from that child, so that they understand that they've made a mistake, and that there is something wrong which is happening. If at all the child is hitting, sometimes we've seen parents can model good behavior for their children, as in they can show what is desired from the child, so that the child also understands, when they are calmer, that okay, this is the way I will get my toy, or this is the way I think sharing happens. And there's a resolution in the anger. Occasionally we've seen that even if parents create stories at the bedtime stories, where they talk about animals sharing certain things, or conflicts being resolved. So that is what we need to give to our children for these kind of behaviors.
Yeah. So I think the important thing that we need to understand is that the period during which hitting or aggression is occurring is not as important as the rest of the 24 hours or the rest of the 23 hours. So what Pratik was saying, precisely that, right? So what I mentioned, teaching social skills. How do you do that? You don't teach the social skills when the child is hitting or after the child has hit immediately, right? But the rest of the time, when you're reading stories to the child or when you're watching certain cartoons with the child, right? Teaching the child at that time or modeling that behavior. So let's say when you are talking to your friends, when you are talking to other family members, how you interact, you say please, you say thank you, you ask for permission, right? You don't express anger by shouting in the house, right? Even if you are frustrated or having a bad day, you don't do that on the phone when you are talking to your juniors that they've made a mistake. So that is what teaches the child. Children learn by observation more than by conversation. So if they observe you doing all of these things, they are probably going to learn to regulate their emotions better. Last resort, what we teach parents is something we call as timeout. Timeout is what he mentioned, like a punishment or a negative reinforcement. So what happens in timeout is basically that if the child is playing or if the child hits and you've had the conversation, you have explained social skills, you have done everything, and still that behavior is continuing and the child is uh, yeah, so somebody's mentioned that if you tell stories
Yeah.
of your childhood, children like it. Absolutely, yes. So personal anecdotes, right? So grandparents are a great asset in these things. They can tell stories about your childhood, even which you don't remember. So I was talking about timeout. In timeout, what we do is that let's say the child has hit, right? So in that moment, taking away that activity from the child. So let's say there will be a corner in the house where the child is made to sit, and this is timeout for you. What do you mean by timeout? You are not going to talk to anybody, like you are not allowed to talk to anybody. Nobody is going to talk to you at that time, and for 5 minutes you're not allowed to play whatever activity you were playing. So that is timeout, we say. Right now, sometimes the child might resist, the child might not go and sit in the corner. So sometimes you have to hold the child and sit with the child but not interact with the child. So the child will be, you're like facing ulta and sitting, so you're not hugging the child is in the opposite direction. Just sit with the child for 5 minutes, and this is your timeout, and we are not going to engage in any activity. you are not going to engage in a conversation or explanation to the child during that time. So that timeout is again a very extreme resort we apply only when things are not working out or being handled at the family level. So that is one option, which is part of behavior change. So taking away the good thing that was happening with the child. So let's say the child took a toy, the child was playing, but the child used hitting to get that. We take the play away from the child. That no, now for 5 minutes you are not allowed to play, you're not allowed to talk, you have to be in timeout. So that's our extreme resort that we use for aggression.
Occasionally, we've seen that if the child gets attention at home only when they throw tantrum, then we need to talk to the parents as well. That you need to pay attention to the child while they show pro-social behavior, so that they understand conduct really well. They understand how to function in a social scenario. We've also seen that during timeout, sometimes it's necessary to identify like one place where the child is safe, not isolated, feels doesn't feel any like cornered or something like that. It can also be a good idea to choose a corner in front of which the other people are playing, so that the child also understands, okay, I'll not be able to go into this unless and until I do the desired behavior. Punishment का
Yeah.
एक rule है. Even timeout has a rule that we need to tell the kid why they have been given a timeout. At the same time, this thing has to follow a bad behavior immediately. It can't happen
Immediately.
that I bring the kid home and tell the kid that this is what you had done in that moment, and this was not okay. Once we see the bad behavior immediately, and after this we need to tell them, okay, this is what is desired from you as a behavior, and if you're ready to do that, you'll get what you want. And most often than not we've seen the behavior is resolving. Now in families, unfortunately, where there is marital discord, there are children who are not being cared for adequately, and we see disruptive behaviors or behaviors of conduct in these children. So it's necessary to seek help with school counselors, or like I said, behavior has to be observed in different settings. So some or the other person will tell you that the behavior is getting influenced, and the child is misbehaving in other settings as well. So necessary to sometimes also choose professional help.
Yeah, so I think the basic crux will be that, both parents need to be on the same page. So when he's saying marital discord, probably the parents are not on the same page with regards to parenting. That's when the problems occur. And very important to keep the child safe during timeout. So many times we see parents confusing timeout with, locking the child in the bathroom or just, dark bedroom. They try to instill fear. The idea is not to instill fear. The idea is to teach the child that if there is bad behavior, fun things will be taken away. We are not trying to scare the child. We are trying to tell the child that if bad behavior is there, fun things will not be allowed for 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever you decide. Small children, 5 minutes is sufficient. So that is very important. Someone has mentioned that children are very receptive to things during bedtime, and absolutely. So that is what we were talking about, being present or spending quality time rather than quantity time with your children. And this is also very important in the principle of connecting before correcting. So if you
Right.
connect with your child, if you are having that bedtime story routine, if you are kind of asking the child about their day, if you're sharing about your day, if you're sharing, getting a check in on the child, okay, what happened about this, you were so excited about this, or you told me about this, you connect with the child is going to be more receptive to corrections when you tell them that this is not okay, or you should not do this, or why don't you try it this way. If we are not connecting with the child, if we are not present, if we are only giving feedback and correction, the children will not be very receptive to that suggestion. So that's just to the comment which came in the chat.
So to increase any behavior, pay attention to it, reinforce it positively, and you'll see that the child does it consistently.
Yeah, so I think that should sort of help a lot of the parents handling these things. Uh, I think the next topic is something that I have uh, particularly seen with a lot of parents complaining when they come to us, and which is basically picky eater, fussy eater. My kid is not eating properly. My kid only wants sugars. My kids can't. I have to give him chocolate every day. I can't tell no for cakes, and they don't like vegetables. So a lot of different types of complaints regarding eating. But so eating is something that a lot of kids love and hate, and how do we manage that?
So, certain things about fussy eating have to be understood. One of those things is that generally fussy eating resolves by teenage. So, particularly in the Indian scenario, in the Indian households, grandparents and any extended relative is also very concerned if the child is not putting on weight, or unless, I would say, unless and until there is failure to thrive, it's nothing to worry about. Children are doing okay just by themselves, and whatever they're eating right now, let's look at it neutrally. To cause fussy eating, the parents have to be very high pressure, or they need to somehow they reinforce certain behaviors, and that is where the fault lies. As in, they shouldn't be fussy about food, or they shouldn't force a child to eat something, because of which the fussy eaters, they kind of throw tantrums, or they become more fussy. um, Early on in their childhood, parents are worried about if the nutrition is adequate. Secondly, they sometimes worry about what is the impact of this selective eating on his social functioning. So generally, it's necessary for a family to have maybe screen free time. Everybody is sitting at the table, one meal at least all the family members are having together. There are times where grandparents are also given feedback about what foods are okay for the kid, what are not, and they can have policies about junk food, about sweets. Usually, when we have to, like I said, when we have to increase a behavior, we need to give attention to that. We need to positively reinforce. There are times where peers also influence the choice of the food, and we need to understand what is being happening in the school canteen, or in these birthday parties that are thrown during the birthday. So there are times where some parents take kids to KFC or McD and Domino's. So it becomes a bit of a problem when the child understands that this is dopamine. I need this, and that is somewhere we need to pull our socks. But yeah, for fussy eating, certain tips I would just say, 4 5 tips. We need not threaten, punish, or force feed a child the food which is good for them but they are not eating. It would cause them to become more and more fussy. We should have a seating position for the child, that it is seated at a table and is right in the middle of the family, where we can observe how they are eating, and we understand their affinity for a certain kind of food. And at the same time, we are watchful about what they are eating, so we also understand ki, theek hai, they're getting some nutrition out of some other food stuff, which is fine. We should prepare a very variable choice of food, and they should be very healthy. We should give them the choice that there are so many of these other foods which are available. We should model the eating behavior as well. If we are eating healthy, if we are eating seasonal foods and a lot of fruits, children also will do the same thing. We have to limit the length of the meals, because there are times where parents and grandparents have to run behind the children कि खाना खा लो, खाना खा लो. So if they're sitting at the table, and if they're having a meal with the family, the length of the meal can be shortened. We need to avoid making special meals for the fussy eaters. We can maybe give just one item which they like, and include the whole of the other food items, and encourage them ki, okay, you'll get one item of your liking, but the others you need to try. And we generally start by that. Food refusals should not be rewarded by offering snacks or junk food, and bargaining, because like I said, if you bargain once, you'll have to bargain again. But with regards to fussy eating, if the child is thriving, it's functional, not cranky, it is good to kind of lay low for a while, not put a lot of pressure on the child.
Yeah, so I completely agree with what Pratik is saying, that, fussy eating, it's most of the times more of parental anxiety than the child actually. Understand this one thing, that not liking vegetables is evolutionary. It was, it's there in our brains to protect us. Most of the vegetables are slightly on the bitter side. And, that is where there are poisons in the nature which are on bitter side, right? And sugar is something which is rewarding, carbohydrate feels good, easy energy, quick energy. So from an evolutionary point of view, our brain is attuned to like sweet things and not like vegetables. As adults, we developed a frontal lobe, and so we know what is right from wrong. With children, it is not going to happen. So exposing children to different kinds of vegetables early on, and I think Pratik had mentioned this in the last session also, that taking your child along with you to the market, showing them what different vegetables are, letting them develop their curiosity, letting them try that vegetable. If they don't eat it, fine. You can always offer the child that food, but do not force it. The more you force feed the child, it reinforces the circle. I would recommend all parents talk to their pediatrician what is a normal amount of food, because most parents are misinformed about this as well, and they want children to eat a larger portion, and that is why the forced feeding happens, and more of the food refusal and bad behavior around meal time starts occurring because of that. So if you're aware that how much portion is okay, even if the child is not eating roti sabzi, but the child has eaten khichdi, which has again carbohydrate, vegetables, all of it, it's fine. I do not need to always force my child to eat this. I would offer the child, I would like it if the child eats, but as long as the child is eating home cooked foods with a balance in nutrition, it should be fine. Lastly, if you feel that the fussy eating is extreme, then we need to look out for sensory issues. Many times now, with increasing parental age, we are seeing sensory issues very, very commonly. Earlier, we saw sensory issues only in neurodevelopmental conditions like autism and ADHD. But now, even in children with normal development, there will be a few sensory issues. So, things to look out for is that your child doesn't like certain textures. So, I have seen kids who don't like rava. So, if they make upma or shira, they'll not eat it. Or certain like jelly like texture. So, they don't like slimy things. So, they'll not like banana, they'll not like jelly, right? So if you see that it's only about a particular texture, then we need to look for sensory issues. Additional things would be that the child does not like brushing, so the child does not like that sensation of brush on the teeth or the gums. That will point out towards the sensory issues. Or the child doesn't like walking in the sand, child doesn't like certain texture of clothes, or child doesn't like certain other things. So these are other sensory issues that might be there, and that is what is causing the fussy eating or the picky eating. But do not reward that behavior by giving the child what the child wants. If we see sensory issues, then we need to probably take professional help. So there are simple things that we can do at home to reduce that textural or sensory issue, and then the feeding habits and the food habits can improve. But yeah,
Uh,
one another problem I think which we will discuss later is also presence of screens during meal times. Children tend to eat
Sometimes
very mindlessly.
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
Speech and language therapists are very adept at helping the child with whatever is happening in the oral
Oral.
cavity. And sometimes you can also understand there are sensory issues when the child shows a gag reflex, as in feels like, okay, nahi jayega ye. So we need to be sensitive, we need to be caring for our children there.
With this, I would want to also, address one or two things. One is basically, busy parents. If parents are feeding kids, they usually have like maybe half an hour with them or 15-20 minutes with them that they want to spend and feed the kid, finish their other work, and go back to work many times. In such times, do kids have fixed eating hours, or should we make it very fixed? And if the kid is not eating during that time, how should it be managed? I mean, they'll get hungry maybe in a couple of hours when you're not there, or probably the food is not there. So should you? So I think that is one of the main reasons that again force feeding many times happens in social situations. Or say if
Right.
you go to a restaurant and the kid is not hungry at that time, how do you deal with that?
I'll just take this. I think Somil, I think many people will agree that after school, we were never so structured. School had a lot of structure. Now, children and their behaviors is all about routines. So we need to have routines for sleep. We need to have routines for eating, for play, for homework, and the more number of times these routines are repeated while school is in session, it will be great. During vacations, we can indulge the children in random things. They cannot take a bath or eat something else, and that would be max to max for a month. But otherwise we set a routine, and we follow the routine ourselves. Like, we need to be models for our children. Mansi, you
No,
want to
so
Yeah,
add
so
something there? Yeah.
yeah. So, what you mentioned, no, that should there be a fixed timing? Absolutely, right? So,
Yeah.
even if you're not
Yes.
busy parents, even if let's say there are stay at home parents, the eating time needs to be fixed. So, it needs to be at a particular place in a particular chair, right? So that structure is there and the child understands. Ideally, no screens while eating and no playing while eating, right? So, doing that activity mindfully, that also reduces the time to kind of the time that is required to finish the meal. So second thing that you asked is that what to do if your free time is not matching with the child's hunger. So I would recommend that ideally parents move their time if possible to match with the child's hunger time, because there is no point feeding the child when the child is not hungry. The child is not going to be able to eat, right? And if it is practically impossible, then probably engaging in some form of help, so let's say a nanny or a caretaker or a grandparent who can feed the child. But yes, ideal would be to feed the child when the child is hungry in a particular duration at a particular place with particular structure.
And with this, another follow-up would be, till when should one engage in feeding a child, or when can, I mean, you can give it to the child to have their own food?
Ideally, we say that children as young as possible should be encouraged to feed themselves. Problem is we don't like it because they are very messy, so they will smash things with their hand, or they will smear things everywhere, right? Or they don't know how to eat with a spoon properly, so things will drop. But that would be the best way for the child to learn, because a child is exposed to different textures, different tastes, and their motor skills also improve, the fine motor skills improve. So we encourage. But sometimes, let's say when you are going out in a restaurant or you're traveling, that might not be possible. But in general, let's say once the gross motor, fine motor skills are developing 2 to 3 years, after that, at least we should promote independent eating as much as possible. So at the most, maybe if the fine motor skills are not good, that's what we like. Even in our childhood, no, parents would break the chapati into small pieces and give us,
Yes.
but eventually we had to pick it up with our 2 fingers, dip it in the sabzi and eat. So we can do that much. So that is developmentally associated. When your fine motor skills are developed enough for you to eat independently, you should be encouraged. So around 3 years of age, they should start at least.
Now, children can learn eating with a spoon. So parents can just, cut the food into smaller pieces, or mix and give them, and it can also be made into a game for younger children, that
Yeah.
who will finish first, or, like how much are we finishing, and what new have we had in the food today. Another thing for food particularly, again, we should have a variety of foodstuffs, and there should be minimal first taboo around eating behaviors and eating attitudes. Very necessary to do that.
Yeah, yeah. So I think nice pointers. It should help. Now coming to the, I think the next thing, it would be something especially for people our age, or people, or maybe future in future, as to how and when to talk to children about sex. It's something especially in today's day and age with social media being so prevalent. They get a lot more exposure quite early, with the screens being, I mean, OTTs being there on every screen, parents watching things that, they are categorized as family ones, but they do have sexual innuendo, or sometimes overtly very sexual. So
So
in these situations, I mean, when should you start talking to your kids about sex? When should you start talking to kids about things like, good touch, bad touch, and all of those things?
I would want to start it with child sexuality, if that's okay with
Yes.
you, Anji. Can I take that?
Yeah, yeah, please. Yeah.
So, generally, children are also sexual beings. They also have sexual behaviors. It is pretty common before the age of 13. More than 50% of the children will have engaged in some kind of sexual behavior. By 2 years, or 2 to 3 years, they understand that there is a difference between genders. There is a girl-boy difference. They are interested in body parts, and this is a proper age to also teach them the name of the genitals. That this is called a penis, that this area is called the vagina or the vulva. At the age of between 2 to 5 years, they show behaviors which are like touching the genitals in public or in private, masturbating, trying to look to see others in the nude, and showing their genitals to others. And these behaviors are sometimes disconcerting and very worrisome, but gradually they decrease after the age of 5, when children develop a sense of privacy, that they understand that okay, these things are very very difficult and shouldn't be done in with anybody particular. Media exposure can also change sexual behavior, and we need to regulate, highly regulate what content children are watching on the screen. We need to seek help if the sexual behavior is occurring very frequently, if it interferes with the child development, if it has any coercion or force associated with it, if there is a high amount of emotional distress, if there are big differences in the child's development as compared to the peers. And even after a intervention or a consultation with a specialist, even after that, like a pediatrician also has been consulted, but if this continues, we need to. we need to consult a mental health professional during such times. Rules regarding sexual behavior sometimes with adolescent children have to be spoken ekdam explicitly, where we have to tell them about masturbation. We have to be open about it, setting an expectation that masturbation should be a thing in privacy, and shouldn't be done if it hurts anybody's sensitivities. And there are certain websites. Now, one of the resource I would want to share is National Center on Sexual Behavior of the Youth. If parents can just go on the website, there will be a variety of sexual behaviors that children exhibit, which are given in this resource. Mansi, you can take over now.
Yeah, so one good thing that he's mentioned is that there are resources out there, right? So sometimes whatever information we are giving might not be particularly applicable to your situation, and it's always good to look for resources online. When to start talking to children is as young as 2 or 3 years old, because like Pratik mentioned, that is when they start understanding that there's a difference between a boy body and a girl body, and that would be a good time. One thing that we need to understand, or one thing that parents start worrying about, is that isn't it too young to teach children about sexuality, right? But we are not teaching children about sexuality when they are this young. We teach them about body parts, we teach them about privacy, we teach them about body autonomy even before you start teaching good touch, bad touch, which is now actually called as safe touch, unsafe touch. So even if you teach them safe touch, unsafe touch, before that you need to teach them about bodily autonomy. So asking your child before you hug them or before you kiss them, which teaches them that it is normal for people to ask. And I can say no when somebody unwanted tries to touch me or kiss me. So that is the most important thing that we need to start teaching children as young as 3 years old. Teaching them the concept of privacy when they are 2 and 3 years old. So let's say they'll not be independent. So you will be changing their clothes, but don't do it in public. Don't do it in front of everyone else, and have that conversation. So let's say you take the child to the bedroom, you close the door and you help the child change the clothes. You tell them, see, now we are going to change clothes, and this is a private activity which needs to be done in privacy where no one else is watching you. These concepts develop with children eventually, right? Parents also need to model that behavior. Many a times we see parents changing their clothes in front of very young children, thinking that they will not understand, that they might not understand, or that's not sexualized behavior, but the child then gets confused if others are doing it, whether it is okay or not okay. So you have to be very mindful of these things. Children are very curious when they are very young, so they might come and ask you things like, okay, where are babies born from, or where do babies come from, right? Or let's say they see a pregnant lady and they'll just inappropriately sometimes ask that, why is that auntie's tummy so big? So at that time you take these cues and you start a social conversation with the child. We need not sit down the child and talk, okay, that today we are going to talk about body parts. No, you can naturally use social situations to initiate these conversations. When the child is asking about the tummy or where do babies come from, use age appropriate simple language. Don't give them all the details if they are very young, but don't hide anything from them also. So tell them that, when like people grow up, when people become adults like mommy and papa, they want to make a baby. So then they, instead of using the word sex, that they have sex, we can say that mommy and papa share a special kind of a hug which allows them to make a baby. So mummy has a egg and papa has a seed which meet, and then the baby is formed in mummy's tummy. We don't need to tell them uterus, we don't need to tell them abdomen. Tummy is okay when the children are 3, 5 years, 6 years old. As the children grow older and older, they will also be exposed to information from outside. That is when we start changing our language. With older children, sometimes they are embarrassed. They will not approach you directly like young kids. They will not ask such questions that, where do babies come from? That is when we initiate the conversation, right? So let's say you are watching something, like you rightly said, that social media, there is so much exposure. So let's say, we use again those situations for initiating conversations. So we see someone kiss, or let's say we are watching a movie like, which was that movie? Not Animal, the Shahid Kapoor one.
Kabir Singh.
Kabir Singh, right? So we can use that to teach consent. That do you think it was okay for him to do this, right? Do you think can you kiss somebody without asking their permission first? So that is something that we can use. But sitting them down, teaching them about body parts with children, maybe 10 and older, we can always use the proper language. We can use the technical terms and teach them about everything. Most importantly, when we talk about sex education, we also need to teach about consent, which we forget. Parents are usually embarrassed, and children will pick up on that cue. If you feel embarrassed while having the conversation, children are not going to come back with queries. They are going to feel embarrassed by themselves, right? So make sure that you feel comfortable before you start that conversation. Always leave room for questions. Tell the child that, okay, you know what, I hope you've understood everything I've told you, but if you have any questions, do come back to me. Certain boundaries need to be drawn. So I think we will talk about, exposure to inappropriate content and screen time in children. We will discuss a few more things at that time. But if you're talking about sex education, we can start as early as 3. Start with bodily autonomy, privacy, and consent. As the children grow older, teach them about safe touch, unsafe touch, and what to do. And then we eventually have conversation about puberty, sexual changes, masturbation, intercourse, relationships, protection, all of these things also. Most of the times parents feel that the school will cover it, and the school feels that, we should not teach it, the children will learn on their own. But if we don't give them good source of information, right, then the children are going to end up learning from their peers, which is usually wrong. Because their knowledge will probably come from Google search and pornography. So it's better to have that conversation, and there is an abundance of resources online. So, for particular age groups, for particular problems, there are certain books, videos which can all be used to teach the children, I think.
Nice. So yeah, I think it's something that's important. I think that we even as doctors don't realize that we need to start early, and it's something that we need to realize that with kids, the more we talk to them and the more information that we give them, the less problems it can lead to in the future.
Yeah.
We need to talk to our boys about consent. We need to talk to them about what is the social etiquette, how to behave properly. We need to also empower our girls with self-defense classes, and at the same time, that you are autonomous. You have freedom to choose who you do want to date or not. But as parents, I request everybody, when they are even going to the school, they should raise a voice about sex education, and that it should be taken by health professionals, not a teacher or somebody else. And as the child goes through 8, 9, 10, 10 standard, it has to be explicit. अपना जो टेक्स्ट बुक का फोटो रहता था, half the time we used to not understand what are we looking at. So there are times where children need to understand, and explicitly also, but that will be when they're in the secondary grade.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Nice. So, how to handle exposure to age-appropriate content? So this, I think, stems from the last topic itself. So basically, first of all, do we take the censor board's word for what is age-appropriate content? Like what is mentioned as under 16, what is mentioned as parental guidance? Do we just take that and take it that this is age appropriate content, or do we decide it as per our value systems? I mean, what do we do? How do we go about it?
Yeah, so age appropriate and age inappropriate is going to be a little subjective, but again has to be complemented with developmental milestones, right? So most of the times, whatever the censor board guidelines are, they are there, but how often do they follow this, right? So I've had children who've accessed the grandparents' phone and come across some reel which was not age appropriate. What will you do about that, right? So you will put TV pe, you will put parental guidelines or PG watching 18 plus, 16 plus. But now with the prevalence of media, it's very difficult to change these things. So what we suggest is that, for children who are not teenagers, so less than 12 years of age, most of the things that are there, whatever devices they access, need to be monitored and supervised. They need to have parental locks, right? They need to have access only to child appropriate content. That is one thing. What is child appropriate? Obviously, something which is explicitly sexual, which is explicitly violent, is not considered age appropriate unless you're an adult. Right? So, anything, even teenagers, I would say something explicitly sexual is not considered age appropriate. So, for younger children, we need to monitor, we need to reduce screen time in general. That's a different story. But even if, let's say, they are exposed to screen, this is what we need to monitor. Before we introduce children to screen, what we need to do is we talk about online safety. So, what is it that you do? So, what are good online behaviors? So, never sharing personal details, never sharing pictures online, not sharing your location online, not sharing your date of birth online, explaining to them what is predatory behavior. So, let's say if someone shares something inappropriate with you, if someone shares something threatening with you, what do you do? How do you handle? And telling them that you are going to be there for them and support them no matter what, so that they can come to you if they are in trouble instead of doing some extreme step, right, to get out of trouble. So that is something we need to talk about. So online safety needs to be taught to kids. Kids as old as 3 years and 2 years know how to unlock a phone, know how to access YouTube, right? So they will engage in all of these media content. But we need to teach them that what is okay, what is not okay, and regulate and monitor. That is going to be very, very important. If you have found out that your child has watched something inappropriate, so let's say you went through the search history and you found out, then you handle it differently. If the child is curious and the child comes and asks you that, oh, papa, I saw this, what should I do? So firstly, whenever you are teaching them online safety and whenever you're giving them a gadget, you will set certain rules that, okay, this is allowed, this is not allowed, this is what you can access, this is what you cannot access. So you cannot go and open mommy papa's Instagram on their phone, right? You cannot watch their so people will use that, they children do that, they go to parents' Instagram and chat with their friends who's using their parents' account again. So that is not allowed. So that is something that you need to set, and there will be consequences if you break the rule. So let's say if we have found out that you accessed something that was not allowed to you, or you probably used the screen in a manner which we don't allow, then maybe screen will be taken away for 1 week, or these will be the consequences. So no going out and playing, or no dessert for you. So some small punishment which we think is appropriate needs to be done. So some negative reinforcement that needs to be done. That is followed by, let's say the child comes out of curiosity and asks you. So many a time parents kind of have an extreme reaction, so either it's anger or it's embarrassment or shame. So that needs to be kind of curbed. We need to understand that it's just curiosity. We were also children once, we also had these questions and doubts, and now the child is having it. So explaining to the child in age appropriate language what it is, what it is not, why the child is not allowed to see that, and drawing boundaries, saying that no, certain things only adults are allowed, certain thing only when you become big like mommy papa you will be allowed to watch or maybe allowed to kind of consume online. That is one thing. If you have found out, where the child has lied and not told you, which is more likely to happen in a little older children, not just very young children, that you have found out that the child went and saw something and forgot to delete it from the history. So at that time, sitting down the child, again not getting angry. If you get angry, the child is going to become more and more secretive and never going to open up about their online behaviors. So then again, sitting down them and telling them that why it is wrong to consume this. So let's say if they've visited a pornography site, so telling them that how pornography gives them unrealistic ideas about sexual intercourse, that is not how it actually happens in real life, or this is how something that is also illegal, or having the legal aspect that this is not something that's allowed and you can get into trouble for consuming this kind of content, or somebody can take away your personal details and then trouble you. So explaining online security or online safety behaviors, what happens if you don't follow, and then followed by the consequences of breaking the rule of the house. So all these need to be done, but not getting angry, not getting embarrassed, right? And respond with curiosity. So let's say when a child comes, oh, I wonder where you saw this. So the child is more opening up and telling you. So many times they will see it in someone else's phone, they might not even have done it at home. But if you shout at the child, if you kind of reprimand the child is not going to open up to you.
Yeah. Very important to keep morality away. It would be nice to have a scientific temper and an attitude like this is biology and it is taking over. We also need to have our children understand what is digital literacy, as in it's the ability of people to understand and use digital technologies for meaningful actions in life. We also need to develop critical thinking in our children as to what are they watching, and question whatever that is. Now, working in the field of sexual health, I've seen male gender patients coming up with guilt about masturbation, and which is, I think, a very problematic part about I would say Indian mentality particularly, that they make sex a taboo topic, and males are to a certain extent having that kind of a guilt. So necessary to be scientific with children.
Yeah. So one more
True.
thing was violence. Basically, sexuality is something I think that a lot of people do understand. A lot of the animations, a lot of the movies these days have a lot of explicit violence in them. At what age do kids get very much affected by that kind of violence, and at what age? I mean, because they don't understand what is right and wrong. So, at what age that violence and that super machoism that is these days portrayed in a lot of movies that affects kids, and when should we sort of restrict that more? Any guidelines on that, or is that more related? It's a very, very, very subjective thing.
It is a fairly subjective thing, but it is also known. Like there are social experiments which were done where children who were just exposed to violent became more violent. So they just watched a video which was about violence, and it is very much proven that watching violent video games, anime promotes violence in children while they are playing. Right, so it is best to restrict this kind of content as much as possible. If not, and obviously, then having the talk with children, explaining the appropriate and inappropriate behavior to them, that needs to be done. So depending upon at what stage the child is the child still just experimenting or thinking that it's okay to kind of imitate what I'm seeing online or on screen? If that is happening, then it's just something that can be resolved with talking. But if it is something that has become more of a habit, more of a coping mechanism, where the child is getting aggressive in dealing with daily situations or getting violent in dealing with daily situations, then we probably need intervention.
Yeah, because I think this also was true for our times, and I think WWE, WWF is something
Yes.
that we remember a lot of kids imitating, and I
Yes.
remember kids having bad injuries because of it, because they did not know what was there.
Uh,
Mm.
there is
It's
a
coming
there's
back
a
on Netflix now.
yeah. There is a website called as Common Sense Media. No, this is a media which tells, gives very brief reviews about, or a preview rather, of the content that children are watching, and right from Coco Melon से लेकर Game of Thrones में क्या चीज है, so that the parents are also understanding what the kid is gonna watch. So
Right.
Common Sense Media, yeah, that's the
Yeah.
place to go.
I think you
I
can
think
drop
more
the links later, साथ में सब,
Yeah.
2 or 3 websites that you're going to tell us. Okay, we can go to the
than
next one. This is something that we got asked in the group as well. How to handle sibling rivalry. So sibling rivalry is something, whether you need to handle, how much you intervene, do you intervene as
Right.
parents? Yeah. And I think sibling rivalry would also go up to like whether it is related to friends. I mean, does it extend to like close friends, and does it extend to cousins or some other people as well?
Yeah. So there are some batchmates who have two children, and I would want to give a shout out to them by calling out their children's names. So this is for parents of Virat and Angad Thorat, one of whom has joined here. Atharva and Arav Khedkar, Ranveer and Vikram Shah, Radhika and Sia Desai, Rhythm and Ilara, Wagmare, Avnish and Vedansh, Hun Rao, Nirja and Meera Mane, Ashwant and Ridit Kumwad, Swaditi and Swadin Devre, Arya and Aarti Sawant. Now, there are more, but I could find these names, so I would want to give a shout out to these parents, because it's not easy to parent siblings, and it's a very tricky situation at home sometimes. Now,
I
sibling
don't think we
rivalry
have
can
twins, no?
be defined as a competition among. So sorry, Swami, were you saying something?
No, no, no. I was just wondering whether do we have any twins in the batch? Any parents with twins?
Twins.
I don't think anyone.
Supriya, I think. I don't know. I'm
Yeah,
not sure about Supriya. Maybe
I
she
think
might.
twins are another level of siblings, of
Yeah.
parents.
That is
And
again very big
true.
challenge. I don't know if Anup Gadikar has twins.
okay,
I'm just a bit confused about that part. Now, sibling rivalry. Coming back to that. Yeah. So Pradnya is mentioning Supriya had. Now, sibling rivalry, coming back to that, is a competition between siblings for attention, affection, and esteem, as in the kind of praise and kind of appreciation of their parents, or for other rewards. There are reasons for sibling rivalry to occur, and one of them is a sense of perceived neglect. Now, we need to improve our parenting skills when we are planning a second child. We need to prepare our first child for the birth of the second child. Sibling rivalry also results when there is unequal distribution of responsibility, resources, what the child is getting, sometimes even disciplining, where the elder one will say the younger one was spared, and he did a bigger crime but was not punished. And at the same time, parents' attention. It's a difficult thing for doctor parents as well, because their time is limited, like we spoke the last time. There are certain tips which I would want to share for people with two children or more, and having a sibling rivalry. Now, we need to maintain equality in the family, as in rules apply to everyone, including the adults. Resources and whatever we buy for our children generally are for both of them, and we reward sharing, we reward waiting for their turns as well. We create a sense of family. Now vacation trips, trips to a play area or a playhouse, there are stories which mention bonds between siblings. This can be from mythology, this can be some other moral stories as well. There can be role playing games where we can model good behaviors between family members, and they generally are observing, and then they learn about how to behave. Child shouldn't be compared with the other sibling or cousins, as in the child shouldn't be put down. Any child shouldn't be put down for behaving. Okay, this person is doing well behavior wise, you are being a bad boy, and I love him because or her because they do this better than you, because it would just make that child much more insecure. You need to use reinforcers. So your time, your affection sometimes can just be a pat on the back, it can be eye contact, it can be a smile, it can be a thumbs up, calling out their name and saying I love you, and then these are nicer ways of reinforcing our children's is good behavior. And like I said, we need to reward the behavior of sharing and waiting for turn, because children need to practice restraint. Like I spoke in the last session as well, we need to prepare our children, and we need to have them independent, so that when the second child is coming, the child is already taking care of its nutrition needs. If they want something, they know how to ask for it from parents. So, that kind of gives us time to care more for the younger one. And at the same time, we need to also tell the elder child, that the younger kid is the family. He is part of us. We also sometimes need to apologize to the elder child that okay, sorry, yeah, there was some kind of inequality there, so we should apologize, and it is fine, because validation tells them that they are valued, that they still are their your favorite kid, or in your heart. Now both parents should indulge the kid. It shouldn't be that mama is taking care of the elder one, papa is taking care of the junior one. So and when elder sibling loves the younger sibling, or does something for the younger sibling, we need to tell the child explicitly that this is what you did, which was very nice, which we really appreciate. Reward should happen at random intervals. Rewards should never be decided, that after these many good behaviors that we should give a reward or something like that. When it is spontaneous, when it is random, children feel very surprised, and it hits the home run. Basically, children get an idea, okay, this was good, so I should kind of continue doing something like this. Now with the younger child, we need to tell the child that there are rules that everybody is following, and you better conform, or this is how we do it. Respecting the elder sibling, caring and sharing, very very necessary. Sometimes in a fight, when fight is happening between two siblings, parents have to take the love and attention away from both, not one person, both of them, so that they both understand that whatever they are doing is not okay, and that they will get what they want, and they'll get the attention and love back when they show desired behavior, so that the message goes loud and clear to both of them as well, that okay, we are both going to be treated equally, and it's going to be hard for getting what we want if we continue this way. There should be no hitting or screaming at a single child or both children, because that sometimes leaves a memory, and sibling rivalry is further worsened by hitting a child, or yelling at just one child, or even both children. So we need to take care of that. Take the privileges away, take their gadgets away, take their toys away if you want, by saying that you are taking the toys away because they behaved this way, and then give it back once they start behaving in a proper way. And again, we need to prepare the elder child and make them more and more independent before the birth of the second kid.
Yeah. So I think the wonderful points that he made, one of the most important one is that it's a sense of perceived neglect. Most of the times when parents come to us, they want to prove that no, we love both the children equally. But what is equal to you is not perceived as equal by the older sibling, right? The younger baby needs more time. The younger baby needs to be bathed, to be fed, and the older child does not need that. So the older child will feel that I am getting less time. But no, it is not that you are giving less time. It is just that that's developmentally not necessary for the child. So it is that perceived sense. So what we say is that when he mentioned that prepare the child for the birth of the younger sibling, is we need to make them part of the process. So let's say when you are setting up the new nursery, right, or you are going buying clothes, or when you're going for the doctor's appointment for simple sonography, taking the child with you, telling them that, see, this is your baby brother or sister, or this is the baby that we are going to get, getting them excited for the arrival of the new baby, allowing, like, showing them that it's okay to share. Because most often than not, when you see that kids go through this process, when they are part of the journey of pregnancy, the second pregnancy, then they are more active and they are more enthusiastic about the birth of the second baby. So they want to become the big brother or the big sister. We also say that involve the child in caretaking. So let's say when you are changing the diaper of the younger child, right? Giving the older child some activity. Okay, can you get me the new diaper? Can you get me a clean wet wipe? Or can you get me the talcum? Right? And then praising, oh, you're such a big baby. I mean, sorry, you're such a good big brother or such a big good big sister that you helped me do this, right? That inculcates a sense of responsibility towards the younger child, and that is something that reduces sibling rivalry. Most of the times these situations take care. Sometimes when there is a difference in the time spent, let's say your second child or the second pregnancy was difficult and the child genuinely needs more care and attention, and the older child is feeling left out, then involving other family members, sometimes letting the younger child be with other family members while you spend quality time, like in bonding with the older child. So maybe, like, let's say having a special mummy child day out, or today we are going to go out on our date, we are going to do all our fun activities. So go to the time zone, play, or go to the park and eat ice cream, whatever is their preferred activity. Today it's only going to be about you and me, and the younger baby is not going to be with us. The younger baby will be with uncle, auntie, or dada, dadi, or something like that. That is something that you can do, so that that perceived sense of neglect is not there. That is very important. The commonest thing that we see where sibling rivalry arises is when they are fighting and the parent comes and shouts at the younger child saying, you are older, you should understand. You are older in comparison to the younger sibling. He is still a child, or she is also
Right.
still a child. So you saying that, you are older, it does not going to, like, it does not make sense. It's not going to resolve your problem. So like Pratik said, that at that time, the behavior of both children needs to be reprimanded. So if they are fighting and fighting is not allowed, or if they are hitting each other, let's say whoever started, take away the toys from both of them, give both of them a timeout, or give both of them the same kind of punishment or negative reinforcement. That ठीक है, अब दोनों के लिए ये होगा. I don't want to hear who did it first. I just know that this behavior is not acceptable, right? Even if you know that one child has a tendency to hit and it is always the older sibling or the younger sibling who's a naughty one and initiates the fights, don't encourage that behavior, that this behavior is good and that behavior is bad. If it is an unacceptable behavior from both their ends, both of them are punished equally. Never say to the child that you are older, you need to understand, you need to share. Sharing is good, we teach them otherwise. But if the younger child is snatching the toy from the older child is also still a child. He's not going to like it, or she is not going to like it. So don't say that you are older, you need to share. We say that it's okay, both of you don't get to play with this, keep it away, both of you take some new toy and play. Right? So these are just few practical tips which help manage sibling rivalry. We have seen extreme cases of sibling rivalry where the older child has outright, made wishes that I wished my younger brother or younger sister dies, or actually hitting them quite aggressively. In these cases, then we had to intervene with the family, because there was outright favoritism that was happening. So either boy child, girl child, or the mother was divorced and the older daughter reminded her of her husband, and the younger son was more like her. So she did not like the daughter and liked the son more. And then the daughter used to kind of hit the younger child. So in such cases, obviously intervention is required, but in most healthy families, sibling rivalry can be managed with just giving an equal attention, right? Punishing them equally when it's their mistake and not favoring one child.
when parents are very mindful about and they're looking at the elder child, because the elder child was exclusively receiving everything, undivided attention from both the parents, so it will not be naturally habituated to share the attention. Second thing is, that children generally, when they feel that something is taken away from them, they don't have nuances in their behavior. They will respond in, whatever aggression or whatever they would, what would make them get their object, whatever that can be, affection, that can be love, anything. So they sometimes try and use some force.
Yeah.
Oh
but
yeah,
but
okay.
having said that, I think if there are any younger siblings here, अगर आपके एल्डर भाई ने, बहन ने आपको ये बोला नहीं है कि you were adopted, there was something missing in your childhood. I'm sure
Actually,
most of us might have
much
experienced.
time to say.
You are not one of us. Mother and father brought you from somewhere.
Yeah, so very true. So, yeah, I think sibling rivalry is something that also is a lot of fun. And I think a lot of our generation, we were two kids. A lot of us are having one kids, especially I think doctors having kids late and all of that. Having one kids is also something. So, for us, sibling rivalry for our kids is something that they are definitely going to miss a lot of us. But okay, I think the next topic is something that we wish nobody has to go through, but single parent families. So if it does happen, uh, how does it affect the kid? How do parents handle it? And I mean, single parents family at different ages. It also depends on what age the kid is, I guess. And so, how does it? How do we go about it as parents?
Yeah. So usually this is somewhere there, where most of the times professional intervention will be required, especially if the child has gone through a lot of conflict or, is an older child. Younger child might not have experienced the conflict so much because they were very young to understand. Then most of the times, it's just the social situations which they need to learn how to navigate. But the commonest factor that we see here is that when the divorce or the separation of parents is happening, painting the other parent as black, or like, completely black and white situation, that okay, your other parent is completely bad, and that might come from a sense of, protection towards the child, because the mother or the father is caring about the child, and it might also be a real situation. But it is not helpful to do that, because while growing, the child is going to require the effect of both parents in their life, right? So unless it is just a very bitter custody battle, and when the access to the other parent is not there, then again professional intervention is required. But in most cases, when there is shared custody or weekend custody, or the child is meeting both the parents, best not to kind of depict the other parent as good or bad. As children grow older, they come to realize who is there for them, who is not there for them. They start seeing the flaws and the good things in both the parents. So let time take its course and do that. When the children are younger, the most common thing that they struggle with is, questions like, okay, where is my mom or where is my dad, right? So given the Indian structure, most of the time it is the mother who will have the custody. And so, when they go to school and other children ask them, okay, where is your dad, or what does your dad do, why doesn't he live with you? So the children need to be taught how to navigate these questions. Another common thing that needs to happen is that small children have a tendency to blame themselves for everything. So, if you remember your own childhood, you will notice that if mom and dad were fighting, the first thought that comes to us is, oh, are they fighting because of me? Did I do something bad? Right? So, children tend to blame themselves. So, whenever there is, separation happening or a battle or a conflict happening, reiterate to the child that we love you. Mama and daddy do not get along well with themselves because they are grown ups, and sometimes they have these issues as grown ups, but both of them love you equally, and we are always going to be there for you as parents. We need to say this verbally, and we also need to mirror that in our actions and behaviors. So, that is one of the most important things. Younger kids mostly adjust to this and adapt to this. They only need navigation with handling the social situations as to how to answer questions. So, giving them that, mama and papa are friends, but they are not living together. So, they are friends who live separately and, take care of you. So, that kind of language can be used to explain to them. As a child is older, maybe they will also understand a bit more. They will have a bit more complex questions which can be addressed accordingly and age appropriately. But the most important thing is not to picture or paint the other parent as
Yeah.
black and white, allowing them to navigate the social situations and telling them that it is not their fault. The question that also came in your group was that, concerns about role models, right? So let's say they do not have good male role models because separation from father has happened, there's no other family member, male family member, who can be a good role model. So I want to say that role models don't come only from family, right? I remember as a kid, while growing up, I used to look up to my teachers, my neighbors' parents, right? I used to feel that, oh, these parents are also having these good qualities. Or even, teachers in school. So we can have role models anywhere, so that need not be a cause of worry that, okay, just because my child is not having good role models, that it's going to be a problem later in life. As long as you are giving them opportunities to meet people who can be good role models, so engaging them in social activities, engaging them, like you modeling good behavior, that should be sufficient, I feel. Prateek, you want to add something?
Yeah, no, just reiterating the fact that conflict resolution legal professionals के हाथ में दे देते हैं. With the kids, let's just give them a lot of love and attention and make them feel secure. I think that's important.
Yeah, so I guess I think it's a very complex situation, and I mean it would be dealt as per how the situation is. I think it's something that
Yes.
we can't give like a cookie cutter solution for.
True.
So okay, anxious children. So first of all, these days, do you see a lot of anxious children coming to you guys, and what are the usual sources of these anxieties, and how can parents help them?
Okay. So, certain fears and anxieties are developmentally normal. So, fear of dark, fear of dogs, fear of loud sounds like thunder. These are part of normal development. So, we don't call them as anxious children, right? Anxiety has increased after COVID, especially kids who were in the age group of 4 or 5 during COVID now are having a lot of school refusal. So, that kind of anxiety, or children who never had formal schooling because of COVID, and they had online schooling and suddenly had to go to school, they have experienced a lot of school refusal post COVID. That is a form of anxiety that we have been seeing. But otherwise, also, we do see children who are sometimes anxious or clingy. That depends a lot on their temperament, right? So, children who are born with a sensitive temperament can be very clingy, do not like to leave their parents in social situations, do not like change, cry very often, or become very sensitive sometimes, whenever there is a change happening. So first thing I want to iterate is that don't worry. This is something that children go through. It is part of their natural personality. As long as it is not hampering things, like it is not stopping them from going to school, it is not stopping them from playing. Do not panic about it. Most parents panic and then they force the child, right? So that no, you go make friends. So they'll take them to the playground and they'll be like, I'm standing here, you go make friends or you play. Or the child is afraid of the swing or a particular ride, they will forcefully make the child sit on that ride. That increases the fear. So let's just give you an example. I don't know how many of you are afraid of lizards and cockroach, but if somebody just say that there is nothing to be afraid of that cockroach, and comes and places the cockroach in your hand, you are going to have a full blown panic attack. You're going to like scream at the top of your lungs. So that is something that we need to understand, that forcing kids to overcome their anxiety is not going to help. Giving them opportunities to overcome their anxiety is something that we need to do. So let's say the kid is afraid of certain rides, taking the child there, right? You sitting on the ride, showing them that it's okay, and that if the child, giving them an option, do you want to come, do you want to experience it, why don't you come and experience it, and leaving it at that. Don't force the child. If the child volunteers, very good. If not, still praise the child that you were so brave, you came so close, you watched mama and papa do it, you were scared, but despite that you kind of supported us. Praise the child. The next time the child will be more open to trying that ride, or more open to trying that situation. For developmentally normal fears like dark room, monsters under the bed, or loud sounds or dogs, again, do not engage into logical conversation. Children are very young, they don't understand logic at that age, right? So if somebody told you that there are no monsters, that is not the point. The point is, I am afraid. So what we need to do is focus on making the child feel safe, right? So let's say the child is saying there are monsters. Okay, let us take a flashlight and check under all your bed. All right, let's check in the room. So you will go and check it, and then that will kind of reassure the child, or telling the child that, okay, you know what, just give me a shout out, I'm in the next room and I will go come and see if you I will come and see you or make you safe if there is any monster. That reassures the child that my parents can keep me safe. That is very important in terms of developmentally normal fears, making the child feel that the parents can keep them safe. Sometimes engaging in play. So let's say the child is afraid of a monster and you are just having, like home renovation or something, then telling them that, okay, we are going to put up a paint which is monster repellent, right? Or giving them a spray bottle and saying that, you know what, there is this magic potion. If you spray this, the monster will go
Yeah.
away, right? So don't engage into logic, make it more fun, make it more play, and teach the child that they can cope with the anxiety, that you can handle this situation. Instead of saying that, Are, there is nothing this like this, there is no such situation only. No, tell them that you can handle this situation and you can give them fun solutions, right? So that is also possible. So I think if there are, this is something which takes care of most basic anxieties. If the child is someone who's very sensitive and clingy, many times parents become anxious because they are worried that what will happen to my child when they grow up. So I want to just, point out one thing, that if your child is sensitive and clingy, understand that the child has other skill sets which are a very big asset. So it is known that children who are, a little bit sensitive while growing up have a very high emotional intelligence, which is correlated with more success than your intelligence, like more than your IQ, your EQ matters to your success. So, just as parents, if we remind ourselves this, know that, okay, this is just my child's nature. I can support him. I can make him feel comfortable. He'll grow out of this. And he has other strengths which will allow him to be successful in life. It will take care of, clingy or anxious children. Pratik, you want to add something?
Yeah, usually when anxiety results, what we see is any person who's anxious overestimates the risk in any situation. And that's the problem sometimes with children, that they would tell us different reasons as to, say, for example, school refusal. So sometimes they would say that, okay, that teacher is very scary. And you would explain to the child, no, no, we'll talk to the teacher. They are very nice. So, and they are very good people. So the next time the child will say, no, no, there are some dogs in the school compound and I don't like them. They are very threatening. Then you say that, okay, we'll have somebody address that as well. Then the child says, no, but I think there are friends in my class who harass me or something like that, and it will give you increasing intensity stimuli just to make you stop them from pushing to go to school. So it's very necessary to be empathetic. Usually for anxiety, how we handle it is by something called as exposure and response prevention, in which we expose that person to whatever causes them anxiety in an increasing intensity. So how would we do that in school refusal? Firstly, we would have the parents sit outside of the classroom. If and I actually no no so the first thing would be taking the school and taking the kid into the school and sitting in the play area, then sitting with the child. Parents are there in the counselor's room, because every school has a counseling cell. Then helping the child sit in the classroom with the parent outside the classroom, and then the parent outside the school, and then finally the kid is going all by itself. The child's brain has to form a link that going to school is enjoyable, that I have a lot of fun, that I absolutely have a blast when I'm with my friends, when I'm in the school. So that linkage takes a certain amount of time, but it's very empathetically to be done, and no force to be applied.
Yeah. So one of the causes of school refusal is separation anxiety, and very, very rightly, like he mentioned, that you need to gradually increase the duration of separation. So, first you will sit with the child if required for the whole school duration. Then maybe you will leave at recess, and then maybe you will leave, a little more earlier and earlier. So gradually, or even when, let's say, the child is at home and you are going to work. So preparing the child before you leave for work, that, I'm going to go out, you are going to be with mom, the papa, or you are going to be with grandparents or nanny, and then I'm going to come back in 15 minutes. Allow a short period of separation. Praise the child after coming back, that you were such a brave child, you stayed without me, and then gradually increase your period of separation. Provide reassurances if required. So letting the child know that even if mama is far or even if papa is far, you can always video call us, right? You can always see us on the video phone, and then we will come back quickly if required. So letting them know. But if you feel that, the child's intensity of anxiety is increasing, like he mentioned, for school refusal, no matter how much reason you give, it is not resolving, then maybe we will need some intervention. And school refusal again is a very long topic in itself, I would say.
Children sometimes might also give physical complaints. So there is stomach ache, there is headache or
Stomach
something
ache,
like that.
headaches. Yeah.
to draw a response of protective kind of behavior from the parents. Children sometimes do that. So again, we need to
I
be
have
very
had
careful.
True. I've had children who've gone up to like, sonography, endoscopy, and CT abdomen to find nothing. It was just anxiety that was causing the child extreme stomach pain. And, parents themselves got anxious. They were doctor parents, so they kind of did all the investigations thinking that something organic might be there. And it's a good thing. They rule out everything. But eventually, if it is anxiety, it presents more as headache and stomach aches in children, non-specific headaches and stomach aches with no other findings.
Yeah, so I guess children basically would make up excuses of different kinds to get out of anxiety rather than dealing with them. Adults do the same thing most of the times.
True.
So, yeah. So I think the next topic we can come to is screen time in children. This is something that these days is very, very difficult to regulate. For absent parents, it becomes even more so. You don't know how the kid is being exposed to screen time. Schools these days have also started moving to some type of screen times, for engaging kids in different activities as well, is what I have seen. So at home, especially in your presence and in your absence, how would you help kids understand screen time? For younger kids, how do you regulate it? How do you make habits of it? So what would be the recommendations for parents?
The screen time actually kind of got a problematic it's gone to a problematic level after the pandemic. And because schools were and teachers were interacting on the screen, very very young kids were exposed to the screens. Now Indian Academy of Pediatrics guidelines say that less than 2 years no kid should be given a screen, maybe just for video calls. At the age of 2 to 5, less than 1 hour, or maybe just 1 hour can be given. From the age of 5 till teenage, maximum 2 hours. Generally, how do we need to divide the child's day? 8 to 9 hours of sleep, 1 hour of physical activity, hobbies, family time, and homework for the rest of the day. So that children should go out to play and not on the screen. And having said that, the screens are designed in such a way that there are colors, that there are lights, there are sounds which are designed to engage the kid and make it into a pleasurable activity. So that is something which we need to understand about the screens today. Like I said in the last session also, we need to sometimes portray screens as these are something which makes our life easy. So हम लोग bill pay करने के लिए use कर रहे हैं, we are doing something just to order certain things, not for entertainment. So there are some tips that I would want to share with regards to screen usage. We need to set limits and duration of screen time. It's nice to sometimes do what we call a screen time intermittent fasting. Now, intermittent fasting may we start eating, say we have 8 hours of eating and 16 hours of fasting. So we need to set limits for screen usage as well, that after this time everyone at home will leave the screens. Screens for children should be bigger ones, no handheld devices ever. That can be your Game Boys, iPads, phones. No handheld devices ever to be given to children. It can be a television, that would be fine. There should be no screen usage before the bed. These days, children are staying up till 2 o'clock in the morning. What are they doing at till 2 o'clock? I wonder. But we need to tire our children through physical activity so that they sleep. At the same time, now we need to focus on the content, not just the duration, as to what our children are watching. So like I said, common sense media, it gives a preview of what the content is and what our kids are going to be watching. It's nice to have filters on all the OTT platforms. It's also very nice to kind of supervise our children when they are watching content on the screen, so that we can censor it or we can give it a meaning which maybe they'll not be able to understand. We have to sometimes keep the devices in a place where it is not accessible. Now children can't operate certain things, or not can't climb higher or come to us in the clinic and take the devices. So we should encourage them and engage with them very regularly for play in the home, board games, yeah, any other activity that they would want to do. We need to actively engage with them. At the same time, we need to help them get out of the home, have their sports, hobbies, because again, it teaches us sportsman spirit, and that is very encouraging. There should be one device free meal every day, as in at least one meal in the day. It can be lunch or dinner where no screen should be on. Screen should be kept off so that the connection between food and screens is at least a little bit weaker. We need to also manage the advertisements that sometimes come up, because they are mostly about junk food. So that nobody would say to McDonald's, get your heart diseases here. It would always say, I'm loving it. They would never give the frank feedback about that. Now, play with children is a very underestimated tool. Everybody who is a parent will understand their children's skills, their abilities, their intelligences, while playing with the children. And sometimes we need to we need to ask our children to take the lead so that we can understand them a bit better. Encourage digital literacy, like I just said, and we should help our children think rationally and critically about what they are watching. Can this be actually possible? Can this be actually plausible? And we can discuss some content also with our children. And it's an important thing. Now, the series Adolescence on Netflix, what happens to the kid? The kid is a victim of bullying, and cyberbullying is a very big problem these days. When children are very clingy or they are very sensitive about going to play or school, they cry a lot, or they have stopped eating, stopped studying. Do always ask them about bullying, specifically on apps or social media. We need to limit social media ourselves. There is no benefit of going to social media, so that the children also not exposed to that. Australia has already put a restriction. I think it's high time that at home also we practice all of this to help our children. Mansi, you want to add something?
Yeah, I think, the change with regards to screen time is not happening is because parents don't understand the consequences and long-term consequences
Yeah.
of, giving screens to children as young as 2 years old. So it has been proven that it delays cognitive development, it delays your language, it delays your social skills, right? It stops a lot of your brain development from happening. Imagine if, we knew that a certain food group causes that. Like how parents get so anxious about children eating junk food or not exercising, they don't have the same intensity of panic when it comes to screen. Also, screen is something which they see as a respite, so if the child is given screen, I can get 30 minutes of me time, or I can get some peace and quiet, I understand that it's very difficult when you're working parents and you also pressed for time and energy to kind of handle these things. But I think if we understood the long term consequences, we all know what to do to reduce screen, right? It has been discussed since the day cell phones were discovered, and since the pandemic, if they have increased, that you need to have the same rules for everyone in the home. No screens in the bedroom, wi-fi only in the common area, monitor 1 hour of screen time. But we consistently fail to do those things is because we don't understand the intensity of this. Screens are given to children while eating because you want to speed up the process of eating. Children generally tend to overeat or eat very mindlessly. They don't appreciate the food that they're eating when given with screens. So that is again counterproductive, right? Second thing, they start associating screens with food. So every time they see a screen, they want food, or if they see food, they want a screen, which is again not productive or healthy. So understanding that it is a transitional process, and then you might not be able to do it alone. You will need to surround yourself with people who have the same kind of thought process and beliefs. So other parents who also are not engaging in so much screen time, so having a common time to go down to the park and allowing the child to engage in physical activities, collaborating with other parents in your building, in your society, in your school, that is something that will help the change to actually happen. Because we know the theory of it, but execution is not happening. So for that, I think the change needs to happen at a larger level, not just individual families.
I would also want to add, I think everyone who's born in the 80s, grew up in the 90s, we have played with boxes. As in, these were not even toys. And we had a great time doing
Empty
that. We had
boxes.
tops, which would just spin and we would observe that. And that would be pleasurable. We also need to teach our children that it is just okay to get bored and sit.
Bored
We
sometimes.
don't, yeah,
Absolutely. Sorry.
tolerating boredom, just sitting there. and being okay with that. Plus, again, we need to model a good behavior with regards to screen. If we are reading, then our children are also reading. If everybody in the family, adults specifically, are reading good content on books, then children will also be encouraged.
True.
Yeah, I guess kids are monkey see, monkey do. Yeah. So yeah, I think with screen time, most of us know what to do. It's just that we need to follow it.
Screens are here to stay. Screens are
Yeah.
here to
Yeah,
stay,
it's not
keeping
going
in
to go.
mind. So we need to live with that, and but we
Yeah.
need to change the way we are coping.
So
Surely.
I think a lot of the times with the screens, it also happens that I have seen, especially people in the corporate world, being on their emails, or like they have to do work on the phone or something of that sort, which children perceive as screen time as well. And so I've had patients who come and have told us that it's impossible for us to stop screen time. Or sometimes when they come to the clinic to stop the kids from creating havoc over there, they just give them a screen and make them sit in a corner. So in that sense, I don't know how much it can be restricted and how much you can tell a few parents. uh, I mean, if it's used in that way, I don't know, but whether there's any easy solution to that.
I also feel parents need to take care of their mental health. They need to have, good fitness regimes and good habits, so that like modeling becomes very authentic. Like they actually enjoy reading. They actually
Yes.
gain something out of playing board games with the kids and interacting with them. Children just want one very priceless commodity, that is parents' time. Nothing more than that. So yeah, but we need to do that.
So just to add to the point that Dr. Somil made, that what if the parent is working on the screen and the child says that, oh, that is screen time, right? So telling them that no, this is not screen time, because we are right now considering screen time as entertainment or non-educational screen time, right? So if I am doing my work, maybe you can also sit down next to me and study, right? But then your study is not possible on a screen. You need to study with book and paper, like book and a pen or a paper. So probably that, right? Or let's say when I'm not watching something on my phone for entertainment, like he said, using phones for comfort or ease of existence, so paying bills. So that is something that is okay. We tell the children that these are grown up things that we do, but when it comes to entertainment, when it comes to kind of watching content, then we restrict it.
I think these days screen time is also related to shopping online a lot. So that's another thing that it's a very big topic that can be spoken about.
Yeah.
We'll go to the next. I think the last one is like the non-pharmacological interventions in children for behavioral changes, I guess. But so you can just take us through what can be done.
So this is just, because a lot of parents have this anxiety when, they are recommended that you visit a child psychiatrist or a child psychologist. Sometimes in Mumbai, at least it's very easy. So instead of children going only to a pediatrician, like even the school might directly refer them. So they get panicky thinking that, oh, medications and that to psychiatric medication. So I wanted you to understand that in child psychiatry or in any kind of children mental health issues, be it just normal part of development, therapies have a bigger role to play than medications, and there are certain therapies which are specific to certain developmental milestones. So let's say we have speech therapy for children who have delayed speech or children who have articulation disorders, so like stuttering, lisp, stammering, all of these things, right? Or if you just have communication disorders, so let's say some social anxiety, children not speaking in school or in public spaces but being very comfortable about speaking in the house with people they know. So all of these issues a speech therapist can resolve. You need not kind of have, psychiatric medications or anything other than that. A lot of children with autism might have delayed speech. So that's again a completely different neurodevelopmental disorder, and that again has a big role of speech therapy. Second important therapy in children is occupational therapy. Now, occupational therapy is something that deals with your developmental milestones, your sensory and motor developmental milestones majorly. So, children who have sensory issues, like we discussed in fussy eaters, or children who have ADHD, right? Or even nowadays, just because the environment has changed so much, the parental age has increased, our nutrition has changed so much. we see children with a much higher energy level than we had at that age. So let's say 3 or 4 year old children are like absolutely cannot sit for a single second at a same place, where I remember at the age of 3 and 4 we could sit through at least a 30-minute or 40-minute conversation without getting restless. So that is something which can be addressed with occupational therapy. A lot of fine motor skills, so children who cannot zip up, cannot put buttons, cannot write properly, are having big handwriting, delayed handwriting, slow handwriting, can benefit with occupational therapy. Children who have balance issues, right? So we see children who are very clumsy, drop things very often, or parents will say that isko hamesha lagte padte rehta hai. If he goes down to play, he's going to get hurt and come. Or at home also he bangs the doors or doesn't understand pressure sense, how strongly to push the drawer or how strongly to pull the drawer or the door. So these sensory issues can be resolved with occupational therapy. Occupational therapy also works in neurodevelopmental disorders where social skills need to be taught, integrating with other children, social skills training needs to be done. So that is very important. For aggressive behaviors, which we mentioned that are not part of normal development, we have something we call as ABA, applied behavior analysis, where what we, again, it is based on the principles of learning, what we said, negative and positive reinforcement. A certain behavior which is good is promoted, and a certain behavior which is not desired, not good, we try and reduce that behavior. So ABA is one therapy which many a time school will recommend, and parents sometimes become hesitant thinking that, oh, my child is not a problem child, or my child doesn't have a disorder, why should I take? It's just like teaching a child new skill. How you put your child for swimming or summer camp, right? You do this therapy only to teach the child a certain new skill. So, there shouldn't be so much resistance to that. Lastly, we have children who have significant issues and need professional help, and that is when we have therapies like cognitive behavior therapies or rational emotive behavior therapies for dealing with anxiety issues, childhood depression, children who might have gone through severe mental health issues or abuse or even separation sometimes in the family. That is somewhere where professional help is required and is reserved for less than 5% of the children. So what the point is that most of the children do not require mental health professional to intervene. We might assess and we might guide you, but do not panic if somebody is referring or asking you to kind of consult. There are a lot many non-medical therapies which can be done to help children develop new skills. Sorry.
Stem cell therapy, not one of them.
Please.
And DMIT, not at all.
Yes. Yeah. So we have official guidelines and statements put out for both these things. So a lot of children with neurodevelopmental disorders will be recommended stem cell therapy, and a lot of schools are doing DMIT, which is that fingerprint analysis at a mass basis, and they're charging a bomb. Both of these have no scientific evidence as a helpful diagnostic or therapeutic intervention.
Now, one thing which parents have to also change is their attitude towards mental health, as in acceptance of the fact that there is something missing. Now, a caveat I would give very simply: if a child isn't doing something where they are supposed to do, we need to understand that something is amiss. It's when you play with your kid, it's when you interact with them, is when you see the problems as well. Now, simple things that we can do at home, as in we can mix a little bit of dal and chawal and ask the kids to separate it out. We can have mixture of 1 rupee, 5 rupee, 10 rupee, 20 rupee coins and ask them to stack. We can also ask them how much, is it like 20 rupee ka coin hai to kitna rupees ho gaya. So we can even do calculations, but we can see the fine motor as well. If you're playing catch, if you're playing a frisbee with your child, you'll understand what's their depth perception, speed perception, and
Balance.
you'll see that there are some neurological soft signs which we can see through this these kind of activities. And but really, it's keeping an open mind. It's keeping that, okay, I want my kid to enjoy what it's supposed to enjoy. So kids are supposed to study, they are supposed, and they are it's okay for children to be impulsive, to be hyper energetic. But if they are doing these kind of behaviors in more than one setting where they're supposed to sit quietly. So if they go to a hospital, they're all over the place. Or if they are in the school and the teacher is saying that your kid is talking too much, is very disruptive. Take note of that, and there are counselors now in schools who will help you connect with either with a mental health professional, or they will address those things in the school itself. Teachers are great child psychiatrists. They have a huge database of children's behaviors. So have a great rapport with the teachers. Do not take a fight up with the school authorities that my child is not a naughty child. It might just be, but yeah, collaboratively we need to work together.
Yeah, I think it's important we understand the kids. So before we wrap up, no, Sonali had asked a question on a chat that my child needs so many toys these days and sometimes also blackmails probably for them. How to deal with them? So how to deal with kids who want more
So
of
we
anything?
start
Actually, like
absolutely,
can
yeah.
ask for
So
ice cream, toys.
could be, could be. So abundance, right? So like
Yeah.
Pratik was saying that in our childhood, we even played with an empty box. Our
Yes.
imagination ran wild. The more toys and the more gadgets we give them, the imaginative skills will kind of decrease. So before I think the problem starts, we need to intervene at that level. So generally, I have seen parents have a one in, one out rule. So if you're buying a new toy, one old toy has to go out. You choose which one. Right, that is one thing that we can commonly do. Second thing is that if it is getting manipulative, the behavior, then again we come to behavioral therapies that we were talking about, that ignoring the demands, ignoring the blackmailing, let the child have the consequences. So let's, if he's throwing a tantrum or she's throwing a tantrum, let them go through the tantrum, but do not give in to their demands. The child has probably learned that you are giving into the demands and hence blackmailing. Right. So the child says that, oh, I'm not going to go to school. That's fine. But like, we don't say that it's acceptable that you don't go to school, but even if you don't go to school, we are not going to fulfill this demand of you getting a new toy. So that is
Yeah.
something that we need to understand. Don't give in to the blackmailing.
Yeah. No,
Pratik?
so I
Also,
think
it would
one
be
thing.
so sorry, Swamil, so sorry, but it would be good sense to even subscribe to a toy library, so that there is variety of toys which children can get. So
In
that like
rotation.
children also are generally they go to a friend's place or they see on television somebody is interacting with something. So again, yeah, very tricky.
No, so basically, I think a lot of parenting issues stem from insecurity about if I scold the child, will the child not like me anymore, will not love me anymore. I mean, I don't think it ever happens that way. I mean, they are, I think, more forgiving than anyone else towards parents. So we need
I
to be
think,
stronger to
yeah,
discipline our children with regards to how they need to be disciplined.
very, very pertinent. So most of the times it's the parental anxiety which kind of reinforces the behavior. And it's a very valid fear now because, we don't have that parenting guide. Like, our parents most of the times are not with us or they are far away and we don't have that reassurance that what we are doing is right. But like you said, children are much more forgiving and they need to learn right from wrong. Right. And if you connect with the child and then you correct them, then there is no worry about, them not bonding with you in the future.
Yeah, I guess I don't know if Sonali is with us, but hopefully that answers the question. I don't think we have any other questions. So, anyone who are still there, anybody wants to ask a direct question to Mansi or Pratik, I think this would be the last session on parenting. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, we can come back with all our psychiatry
Hey,
friends on
hi,
the.
Shubhangi here, Soumil.
Yes,
Hi,
I
Shubhang.
should go ahead.
I listened a lot of things today, so I literally don't have any question. And Mansi is very wonderful. Like the language or the tone she used, I think I should send my kids to her for
Oh, please
some
do. I
counseling
hope
part.
you kids.
And Pratik, you are also awesome. Yeah.
Thank you, Shubhang.
So
You are
thanks a
also
lot.
awesome for
Um,
attending this on a
yeah.
Sunday morning. Thank you so much.
I guess
Means a
fathers
lot.
fathers
Yeah.
have attended more सबको झाप मिली group पे उसके
Yeah.
बाद and the
This
mothers
time.
went away.
True.
Mothers were like कि
Yeah.
fathers are
Yeah.
attending उनको करने तो हम सीख लेंगे उनसे बाद में.
And
Right.
Thank you.
thanks to Soumil also. Yeah.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Yeah.
So I guess we can wrap it up if anybody has no questions. And I don't think so.
Sounds
I put it on the group also. We don't have any questions from the group.
Sure.
So thanks, guys. Thanks, Pratik. Thanks, Mansi, for taking so much time out for us. And a lot of people are going to watch this later, definitely once the recording also comes out. So if they have
Yeah.
any questions, I'll tell them to either message Pratik personally. If you want to give out, so they both work at a center called Manarogya at Borivali, and I keep sending, at least telling patients to go to them. I don't know if they end up going because
Mm,
still that thing is a big taboo, not just for, I mean, children is a complete next level, even for adults it's a taboo. Hope
Yeah.
it goes away, and I think more and more children should get help when it's needed.
Yeah.
So hopefully this at
No,
least
no,
makes
but
our
my
doctor
request,
community.
Somil, we really don't want any publicity or anything. This is just because we
No.
value the
Yes.
brotherhood of doctors,
So
and
I'll
we
tell you this.
want to
It's
provide
something
like
that I
good
think
guidance for this.
psychiatrists should publicize themselves, because they need to, because there are a lot of people who would really get a lot of help out of it, but they don't know that they would get help out of it. I think more psychiatrists should be online educating the general public about the benefits of therapy, about the benefits of going to a psychiatrist, and sometimes also about the benefits of starting medications, which I don't know, everybody is very, very, very scared of. Yeah. So thanks, anyways, guys. And hopefully we
Our
have some
pleasure.
other sessions where we'll meet up.
Thank you so
Bye.
much. Thank you.
Sure, sure,
Bye.
sure.
Bye.
My
So
request
people,
to everyone would be to
yeah,
leave
start
the
leaving.
meeting so that it stops recording.
Yes.
Have a great weekend, everyone. Bye. Thank you for attending.
Shubhangi, Shubhangi, Anup. Yeah, we loved it.
करता हूँ थैंक यू गाइस हूँ जगह
Uh,
हूँ सोया नहीं हूँ
Shubhangi. Okay. Shubhangi.
हो? एक मिनिट थांब, एक मिनिट. काय तुला कसं बनवायचं बरं मी त्याच्या बनवू का मॅटचं बरं
Hello, Shubhangi. Hello.